right. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are joining us from. My name is Evan Montgomery Pasha, and I'm so excited to be moderating another Eventcombo webinar called Beyond the Demo, Event Tech Expectation versus. So we begin by the note by saying, of course, the session is going to be recorded and replayed and shared after the event. So don't worry about taking notes and make sure to share with your friends. We would also love to make this interactive. So if you are here joining us live, go ahead and join us in the chat. Where are you calling in from, joining us from? We'd love to say good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where in the world you are. We will love to interact with you throughout the session. Please go ahead and put your questions in. We will have a Q&A officially at the end, but don't let that stop you from interacting with. So today's conversation isn't whether or not tech has features. It's about what those features actually hold up under real event conditions. Because as we know, almost everything looks great in a demo, but the real test is what happens under pressure, under volume, and during live execution. So quick pulse in the chat if you are joining us. What's one thing that's ever broken or failed or behaved differently than expected in an event scenario? So if you have a story you'd like to share or something that you'd like to get us thinking about, go ahead and put that in the chat. So while we get that going, it is my absolute privilege and pleasure to introduce you to this slate of fine panelists. First up is Sarah Bonney joining us today. She is the event manager at Experior Financial Group. Over the past decade, Sarah has built her career across both the venue and client side of the industry, leading events throughout Canada and the US with a strong focus on creativity, operational leadership, and strategic execution. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning.
Good morning. Next, joining us is the one and only Jeff Brandeis. He's a keynote speaker, presentation coach, and the host of the Authority Playbook on Now Media TV, helping leaders and sales teams turn presentations into revenue-driving moments through stronger communication and audience engagement. Welcome, Jeff.
Hi, thank you, Devin.
And last but not least, we have Nick Borelli, the event technology strategist and consultant known for helping organizations evaluate tech through the lens of real operational performance and attendee experience. Welcome, Nick. Nick, you were on mute, but we are very excited to have you.
Sorry, see tech going wrong. Usually it's just me.
See, now we're already starting off. There's a great demo on how to turn things on and off of mute. So
that's right.
So today we're going to be looking at this through a couple of different lenses for you all to help us look at not just how to go to a demo or look at one or evaluate new tech, but really to have a robust perspective on how it can help our partners, how it can help our businesses, how it can help us as consultants. And I know each of you is bringing a really unique lens. As we talked about before we joined the stage, Event Tech covers a full spec purchasing to registration to budgets and more. So I know that we won't be able to talk about every piece of every tech, but let's look at it from the lens of looking beyond a demo and how demonstrations, expectations, and reality need to be evaluated from your different perspectives to be really functional. So we're going to start with, let's not say the worst case scenario, but where event tech breaks after we go live. So Sarah, I want to start with you. So where have you seen systems behave differently once the event is actually up and going and you've pressed go live?
Yeah, I mean, we see it all the time. When you're on site, you're ready to go, everything looks great, and then the first attendee comes up, maybe it goes good, and the second attendee comes up and it starts going bad. A lot of things that I find in my role, the things that actually go wrong on site aren't with the platform, it's with the attendee behavior and how the platform reaches the attendee behavior. And when we first started doing events, we didn't really know our attendee behavior. I was new to the industry that I'm in. And over time, I learned what the attendee behavior was. So we're slowly bridging that gap. But I think that's always been the main problem is how your specific attendee acts and how the demo acts without the attendee involved. I think that's the biggest thing.
So I just want to make sure I heard that, because that's actually, I think, a really interesting point, is that the tech might be working perfectly, but if the tech is only designed for a user who fits into this really specific box, that if you have, let's say, 1,000 different people who have 1,000 different needs that are slightly niche to that specific box, that it's those changes that can tend to upset the tech or break it. We don't like to say broken, but the broken tech versus the fact that the tech itself actually broke. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, 100%. I think within every industry, your perfect client is very different. So some industries may be defined as better with the tech, where other industries maybe they're not. So when it comes to the time where they do have to, I'm speaking more of in the registration respect, when they get there, that software might not meet them where they need to be met.
Wow. That's a great perspective to start off with. And actually, Nick, I'm going to switch this over to you because you have the tech perspective going outwards to attendees. So from your perspective, could teams be underestimating the complexity of those live environments or the complexity of, let's say, 1,000 different needs for 1,000 different users?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of two things. It's one is event organizers. They're just super nice. Rarely in demos do they talk about worst case scenarios. Rarely do they ask you, what happens if this happens? What happens if that happens? They just tell you, what should I know? And then it ends up being like sort of an information dump as opposed to a conversation rooted in tough question. If anyone's any good at what they do, tough questions are great. We love tough questions because they go to bed thinking about this stuff. They wake up thinking about it. So there's nothing that you're going to think about as someone who's good. So the lack of tough questions of saying, what happens if the Wi-Fi goes out? What happens if this? What happens if your power is, what if 10% of your, product fails? Do you have, a contingency? Those types of questions, I really think it's like, it ends up being the sort of nice person hospitality gene that gets in the way of, just brass tacks, tough stuff. Jeff, you might be different. You know a lot of people in New York, those people ask straight questions. So I like that. So there's that. And then it's the combination and just coming to the table with some of those scenarios ahead of time, like, shooting the worst case scenario at one of your potential event tech companies and saying, okay, this is something that happened to me. How would you have dealt with this? Those kinds of things for the relationship. And then the last thing is the complexity. I think it is very complex. I think the complexity that's not brought up is the interconnectivity of other event technology platforms that may be in play, and not even in the sort of pass-fail binary sense, but more of an optimization. Like, this is redundant, or this would be, if you've got this would be great in this way. So really just explaining the whole event and then all of the other partners involved into the event tech company, they have the opportunity to tell you how they can work in concert and maybe differently. So once you get over the hurdle of the tough questions, then just dump everything on them because they'd rather be informed than be in the dark.
That's such a good point, Nick. And I love that you brought it up from that perspective, because I think what we might be missing is, like, we want to see all the bells and whistles, or you come to say, hey, it's brand new. And I think, as a sales demo, you're like, I want to show you all the shiny things that this can do. And it can solve all of your problems in this ideal box, right? In this, which we all know is not the world that we live in. So being able to come to say, like, yeah, that's nice. Let me give you a scenario. Show me how this applies to X, Y, and Z thing. Like, versus that sort of maybe like canned, like, I'm really prepared to give you this speech from start to finish and click 32 buttons and show you this workflow versus, all right, let me put your specific scenario in here and be prepared. And I think that goes from a difference between, like, building trust, like you just said, like, you need to be able to trust this person who you want to buy something from. But if they can only give you that canned, no, I can show you from A to B and I can show you all of these buttons, then, maybe you're not optimizing how it can work for your specific group. Yeah,
I've seen those demos where they're performing a very choreographed dance as opposed to someone who is consultative, who's like, who cares what I do? Tell me what you do. Tell me what your goals are. Tell me what your pains are. I'm going to absorb all that, and then I'm going to give you a solution of where we fit within that. That's what you should hope for in a demo, as opposed to where you can see where people are hitting their marks. I mean, that's great from a confidence standpoint in the event tech salesperson, but the reality is that the next level of partner is one who can think on their feet and is sort of modular in how they talk about what they do. And so just break up the rhythm, ask more questions, don't be afraid of asking tough questions, and look for the sweat.
Look for the sweat. I love that, guys. Everyone write that down. Look for the sweat. That's where you'll build out your partners. So shifting into experience, Jeff, our tough New Yorker, man from the boroughs, we'd like to ask a tough question, because you know a lot about audience engagement. You know about that presentation. You know about connecting. Where do you see technology interrupt experience instead of supporting it? So if we're looking at how to connect with all of these people, we said 1,000 different people with 1,000 different niche needs. We're trying to get out of that box of a rehearsal event tech. Like, from where you sit at that intersection, where do you see technology sort of interrupt that experience as people are using it versus being able to enhance it and work in concert?
So, great question. There needs to be a balancing act between technology and actually what your message is. Because you start to show too much tech, too much fancy things, too much animation, too many videos, too many poll questions, your real mission or your what you're really trying to message across to your audience will get lost. But I'm going to pick up a little bit of what Nick said earlier. Is part of a presentation is to make it a win-win. So you should get information and learn a little bit more about your audience by asking a poll question and get people to interact with you, so you can learn what's important to them. Because your demonstration that you might be thinking you're going to be doing, your audience could be totally different, looking for something else. And you're down your path, you're down the street, and you lost them, they're gone. So getting those consultative poll questions and understanding what the makeup of your audience is so important before you even get into all the fancy tech. It's their journey, it's why they joined you versus what's in it for me as my participant versus anything else. That's why you're there, is to give them knowledge.
Absolutely. I love that all of you actually touched on a very similar theme, which is about your attendee journey, and whether that's you thinking about individuals from the attendees that you're representing, or you as the attendee listening to the tech and the demo. It's really trying to dive in and to understand what that journey has to look like. So, Nick, I love that you said, listen, I need to know who I'm talking to. It's like, yeah, I could tell you all about how long I've worked at this company. Who are you? Why are you here? What are your events like? Who are you representing? What does it look like for your company? What does success look like? Is really dialing into what's that win-win, like Jeff just said. I need to know so I can show you something that I'm curating. This next bit of me pressing buttons is specifically for you. And Sarah, you said, look, I need to know what my people want, because where I've seen tech go wrong is when it's their attendee behavior that breaks the system, instead of the system supporting what I know is my attendee behavior. And Jeff, I think you married those two together. It's like you have to find the win-win. You have to design for that engagement and that experience, and have to make sure that when you're looking at a demo, supporting a demo, or choosing, that it really goes into that consultative, mission-aligned win-win. So we were already off to this really interesting start that all of you are just sort of bringing this one idea together, that you have to have a little bit of knowledge, and you have to be able to ask those questions first to then be able to utilize this well. Which kind of brings us into the next lens we're going to look at about these demos and what demos don't show. So I want to start with this idea of what is the biggest disconnect between a successful demo and successful execution? And Nick, you started off a little bit of this in our last question, kind of saying yeah, I can do my script and my dance. And I know I'm really confident in this dance with these steps and this thing. But if we need to talk about successful execution, what is that key difference for you, especially as someone who does and shows and can really help someone dive into tech? Where would you say the perfect disconnect is between a demo and execution?
Yeah, I think it's make or break variables. I think it is where failure points are, and having a better understanding of straight up asking that as maybe the organizer talking to event technology. Asking them where, when things have not gone right, what has been those catalysts? What have been information that you were missing, what perspectives that you didn't have? And then flip side, tell me a story, an organizer who did everything right with working with you. What did they bring to the table? What did they ask you? Instead of guessing, just ask for the experience on their side. To be able to then say, because what they'll do is they do a lot more demos for their product than you have, and they've had a lot more experience using their product than you have. So asking them, hey, what has been the catalyst to create challenges? We want to not cross those roads. We want to use your experience and avoid those things. And then what have been some traits of people who've worked with you and organizations that have worked with you in that were working relationship that have been that make them your favorite people? I want to be one of those people. So tell me exactly what success looks like for you. And then what'll happen is they'll give you a roadmap that will have all the things that you need to dodge, and also all of the goals you have. If you marry that with sharing your organizational goals, like that are the must do's, must accomplish KPIs, that's what the technology company necessarily know. Hey, between anything or these things have to happen. So at when you're in a decision in a suboptimal environment where you have to make choices, these are the things that we have to have no matter what. These are critical, and these would be considered fails if you do that. And then everything else sort of bows to that. That at least gives you the parameters. You're not going to be able to identify every potential scenario that would lead you astray, but you at least have a North Star. And if you can ask them what their organizing principle is, or anything that really is about their why of why this event is taking place, when they make decisions, or when you think about what to ship or how to plan for it, you can err towards the side of what is the main goals for that organization. So it's not cookie cutter.
Yeah, I love that. I also love that you really dialed into like what's considered a fail. And I think when you talked about tough questions earlier, I know Jeff and Tori, you both kind of talked about this, is because what we're really looking at is like, because this goes wrong and then we're the ones eating it on the other end. Our attendees are having a negative experience. We're not seeing the returns on our investment anymore. So it has this multiple domino effect. But I love this question of what's considered a fail. And I want, you can let's round this out and let's draw this comment out a little bit, because if we can start backwards from a fail, does that help us re-see what we need to ask in a demo, or where we've seen execution happen that can help create that trust a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, what'll come up in that inevitably is their tolerance for risk. And there's a sliding scale depending on the client, industry, et cetera, of what their tolerance for risk is. And then the risk factors that set that off. There might be some nice to have items that for other groups are need to have, and you just really don't know the difference, because what you do is you treat everyone like an average, which is a really easy trap to get into. And you do a lot of work, is to say, look, I know what most people want. And the critical difference most of the time when I see, fails, so to speak, are the ones of not understanding that specific nuances of that organization. They could be like, look, actually, the only thing that matters is this 30 minutes. This presentation with our CEO, that's what this whole thing is about. The rest of it is just pretense, and we wrap it around. But honestly, these are the moments. If you have your A team, they need to be here for this. If you have extra support, it needs to be during this time. Those kinds of elements, when there's lots of, risk factors and lots of opportunities to shift. If you knew that these are the key moments for the organization, for the event, it allows you to make better decisions. And for me, it's just I think where failure happens is treating everything like an average, and then not going deeper. And it's a very easy trap to fall into the more work that you do. I mean, you get good at the average. And you stop getting curious, and you stop, treating people because you've seen so many things, you realize that there's probably not that many variables, but each one of those are the most critical, because you simply just didn't ask, and you got a little humble, hopefully.
I love this idea of understanding where risk aversion happens with your clients. And Jeff, I want to bring you in here, because I know you work with a lot where, especially when it's public facing and front facing to people, where risk aversion tends to be a little bit more towards we can't, we're going to be really conservative here because this is a very front facing, impactful moment. Jeff, from your lens, when we're thinking about what demos don't show, or where that risk aversion comes in, can you share with us a little bit about what you feel they don't show in those moments, and how it can affect audience engagement and interaction?
So a lot of times I've seen on demos where we're demonstrating our product, but there's also outside connections to other software programs or other connectors or other elements are for whatever reason are never discussed during the presentation. And when you're expecting all of a sudden to show a magical report that appears and it doesn't, okay? And what you say next, okay? And that's where that technology breakdown really happens. And to me, you always need to have that fallback situation. Maybe you have a slide or a picture of what the actual report does. look like, so you actually can show it. But when technology is involved and you have so many different steps and factors in building something that your audience is not aware of, that's a challenge, and that's definitely a failure from a tech perspective. And the other side of life is sometimes I just say, if you don't know who your audience is, and there's a bunch of general folks out there who are looking for a solution, bring it up to a higher level and just bring it out to the folks that, hey, we're going to do a high level presentation today, and there's a lot that goes into our program, but I'm just going to give you a taste of what we're going to be able to do, and we can obviously set up one-on-one meetings later on. But it's all how you couch it, it's all how you present it, and knowing who your audience is at the end of the day. But tech is going to happen, tech failure is going to happen, and things will catch you when you're least expecting it. So just be prepared.
Right, because tech failures never happen at a very convenient time.
No, they never do. Yeah.
Like if you could fail 2 days before the event and let us time to fix it, versus like doors are open and now it goes down.
Can I add one little anecdote here? I remember doing a speech. It was a fundraising speech for cancer survivors. It was really, a simple PowerPoint presentation. And for whatever reason, my laptop just would not, it was spinning. And to get everyone laughing, I said, okay, here we are, everyone, we're doing the demo, and life happens, okay? There was nothing fancy tech, it was just a slide deck, but, having the ability to recover, kind of get the audience, unfocused, so to speak, on what's transpiring, while you figure out what the issue is as well, is also important as the moderator or as a speaker.
Thanks, Jeff. And I think we're all having like one of those, like, and if you're in the chat, please tell us one of the times that like your tech went down at like a really inconvenient time, or if you've got a story to share, we'd love to hear it, because I think we've all lived through those oh crap moments.
Yep.
Sarah, I want to bring you in here because Jeff and Nick have really teed up an interesting point about adjusting around the system. And so, yes, like we want this thing to work great. And like, yes, on an average, it looks like this. And yes, in a perfect demo, it acts this way. But from a user standpoint, especially because you've got teams in the US and Canada, because you both do internal and external facing, when the systems don't hold up, and now I'm looking at you because like you're generally the one that's like, hey, this broke, Sarah, go fix it, because you're about to go live, whether it's internal or external. Like, where do the manual workarounds cause a problem? Or where do you realize too late that you should have actually been able to integrate this system and this system, and now they don't talk to each other? And I know there's a lot of ripple effects. So I want to bring you in here to start this conversation about like, how do we adjust around the system, or what does that look like for you?
Yeah, actually right now, it's funny you bring that up, because internally we're talking about hiring somebody whose sole job is to make sure that all those bridges are gapped and that these breaks don't happen for when we get on site. Because I find a lot of the times too, speaking about the attendee behavior, they fill out maybe their registration form, but the information they submitted maybe wasn't 100% accurate, and they think, oh, we'll fix it later. The event's still a year away, I have time. But from our end, that information actually fully builds our event, from awards to how we do the name badges to food to all those things. So a lot of manual cleanup does have to be done to ensure that we are having a seamless experience for them, because at the end of the day, and anybody in the events world can understand this, that if there is a mistake or they don't get their award because a mistake they might have made, it's still our problem to fix no matter what. So we're actually in the midst right now of looking at how exactly we can change it, because when you start the flow of the whole workflow from the beginning, everything's clean. It's like, we got it this year. We did it right. The form looks great. The way we're collecting it. And then you kind of take a break away from it because you're working on other things. And as soon as you go back, you're like, whoa, what happened here? There's like 1,000 fixes we have to make now. So it is a lot of manual work of fixing it, and then also maybe referencing other things that now you're spending days on making sure. And maybe you only caught one mistake, but you have to check them all now because you caught that one mistake.
So let's go down that rabbit hole a little bit more, because when we're thinking about worst case scenarios, and Nick, I know you brought this up too. It's like, if they don't talk to each other, you're going to add manual labor to do this and then get to report. So Sarah, I know you probably felt this what is the real cost of having to adjust around the system? Like, yes, you caught one mistake at person one out of 1,500 or 2,000 or 10,000. So what is the real cost of having to now go back and adjust that? I mean, of course, there's time, which we know can be monetized, but is it trust? Is it revenue? Like, when these things happen, like, where do you see these dominoes start to fall?
Yeah, I think the cost is the attendee experience, because if you're having these issues happen, whether we caught it or not, and we're like, obviously there's cost in staffing to fix it, there's cost in the days it takes, but the cost is, I believe, if the attendee experience, and maybe because of that break, they didn't have a good experience and they showed up and they were angry. So now we have to resolve that, and it does cost a lot, because maybe now they don't want to come next year. Maybe now they're dissatisfied with something. And I think that's the biggest cost, really.
Yeah, I think, when we're looking at even registration forms, right? And we've all filled out a registration form, and it's like there's a quick and easy one where it's like name, phone number, email, yes, I'm coming, yes, I want this thing, and done, versus like 17 questions later, and I think I messed something up and I didn't capture something, and people are going back, and it's sort of your first introduction, right, to how the event is going to flow. Or you get to the registration desk and you want to check in and get your name badge, and the line is 3 hours long, and you're like, why am I here? This is already like so negative. And the poor kids in the back are like, all the system is down. We can't print any name badges. We're trying to like manually check you in of the list of 10,000 people and alphabetically. And, I can see that one instance, if that's the start of your event, can just have this sort of really snowballing result. So Nick, like, when we're looking at from operationals, and I know you've seen it from both ends and you can see integrations, is there a way that we could look at potential signals that shows a platform maybe isn't really working for you, isn't meant for you, or isn't able to play nice in the sandbox with your other systems?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the biggest one is probably capacity. So anything that is contingent on capacity, getting an understanding of the organizations and scales of events that they've worked on and the complexities of that. And then, how regular, have you done a 10,000 event? Great. Do you routinely do them? Is a big difference. It's like going to a doctor and asking, I need this surgery. What do you think? And they go, probably. You go, not my person. I'm gonna get a book and read about how to do this. You're out. So you have to have someone who, is just like, yeah, of course. Like we have these routinely. That's a Tuesday for us, and we have a whole other system that is backed up in case this happens. Like those kinds of redundancies, because they've worked in complex situations. So it's not just how you do it or how it works in an ideal situation or that. The next level is matching to scale. And sometimes it might work in the inverse way, where an organization is primed where their ICP is at a much larger scale than your organization. It's a real hidden weird thing that it sometimes you might be, this is going to sound terrible, but like beneath them. It's like you're I don't know if you've experienced, I've experienced on the other end more than I've experienced it on being an event tech, but you just feel like your 100-person event or whatever it is, let's say, you're just not getting their full attention because it's just not big enough in that scale. Meanwhile, it's more than just how many attendees show up to rank how invaluable an event is, and every event is extremely valuable to the person putting it on. So having that understanding is really important, and then asking about what the game day situation looks like for who you would be talking to on site. So like, tell me, like, is it a 24-hour chat that is contracted out to third world? Okay. Am I talking to Ted on the day of too, knowing everyone's time zones? Like, am I actually going to talk to you? Are you going to be the one there for my event? That's a huge deal. I worked for an event technology company a while ago, not the one I'm at now, where they said, every time we talk to our clients, it's a bug. And I understand that from a tech mentality. It's because it's hard to scale when you're actually having conversations. Anyone ever had a phone call with Facebook? You don't. You can't call. Yeah. So you don't know anybody at eBay either, probably. They do a lot of business. The reality is that those organizations are trying to be zero touch. I don't think zero touch works in the events industry. Full stop. Doesn't matter who you are, how big you are. I think this is a high touch industry, and I think that's where the risk aversion and the relationships come in. So I would ask those questions. Hey, when I need a troubleshoot in the day of the event, who am I talking to? Do you have a number that I can talk to someone directly? Those kinds of almost, in folksy in terms of the tech industry would say, geez, if they don't bat an eye for that, if they're like, of course it's this, and the best level that they would give you towards concierge style, that's probably somebody that you want to work with, if they have that opportunity. But again, think about this. Tech doesn't want to talk to you, broadly speaking. It wants to be able to just move at lightning speed in lowest touch. You want highest touch. So ask those questions and put that out there ahead of time and say, look, I know, a lot of technology companies want to be able to send me to an FAQ page. FAQ pages don't work when I'm in a crisis. I need a pulse. I need somebody on my team who understands my event and is the thumb on the pulse of this. So asking that ahead of time, as opposed to just how it works and those types of things, huge difference for sure.
Right. I keep thinking of when you get on a phone call and there's like, press 1 for this, and you're just pressing 0. Like, how many times do I press 0 or shout the word customer service into the phone before they, or my new favorite is the chat bots that like try to answer everything. And they're like, I need to escalate this past you. It's like, oh, we've answered your question. No, you haven't. Yeah. It's like, have I answered it yet? No, you haven't. Like, can I talk to a human being now? Can I talk to a human being now? Like, and I think
we're too smart for FAQ. Like we've already figured out if it's been frequently asked, we've already thought of it. Like, we're professionals. Where we're stuck is always some niche, super weird, didn't think of it problem. That's where you need somebody. So if you're reaching out in a game day situation, you need an elevated, give me the red phone, give me the direct signal. Yeah, exactly. That's what I want.
I need direct to Batman. And I love, because we've all called tech customer service, and first thing's like, did you try turning it off and turning it back on? It's like, I'm on step 1,000. Like, I don't need to start at step 1. I've already done all of that. Like you said, like, this is really niche. Like, this is really what's happening. Like, everyone with the last name B is working. Like,
the stakes of live events are very different than someone who's calling technology company who's working in an office on a Thursday. It's and most people in customer service are used to the latter as far as the urgency level. There's nothing. It's not like, hey guys, this didn't work out, the registration element, we're going to postpone the event till tomorrow. It's going, it's happening, it's already started. So that level of energy and urgency is a very different scenario than other technology, offerings outside of the event space are used to dealing with. Some of the people that they subcontract these calls to, they have like 6 different products that they represent, and they just like, who are you? What's the product I'm talking about now? You don't want that person. Like, you want somebody who is like, seen this at every corner. So like, to me, if I'm going to be like a pain for anything, it's a pain for contingencies.
I love that. A pain for contingencies. We'll write that one down too. Like, I'm going to embroider so many pillows, like a pain for contingencies. I want to see them sweat. Like, these are great t-shirts.
I want to see them not sweat. I just want to put that out. But I'm looking for sweat. Perspiration is a KPI for me.
But we're all joking, but at the same time, it's like, because we're sitting in our event knowing 3,000 people are about to walk in the door, like, we are literally sweating bullets, and I need the bat phone. Like, I don't need to talk to your bot for 20 minutes while I'm like literally,
I want someone in the trenches with me, like
with you.
Foxhole conversations. That's what I want.
Love it. Love foxholes. So Jeff, I want to bring you into this cost of adjusting around the system, because we're really talking about high level moments, high visibility, and it's high investment. These are our make or break moments, our crucible moments, when we really need to be able to understand if we have to adjust around this system, that this has real costs. So I just want to bring you in and get your idea of like, what from your perspective is the cost of having to adjust around a system that either isn't performing optimally, isn't talking to our other systems, or we're just flat out like, yep, something broke because it's going to, like, what do we do now?
Yeah, the costs are huge when you're in this high stake game really right now. It's not just a new client cost. It could be a renewal client cost. It could be, prospects for the future down the road. It's immense. Plus, you have the employee cost also that, a lot of people don't even consider. Is, you're on stage, you're representing your product, and now your product doesn't work. So does that also put that doubt in the employee's mind of, should I be working here at this company? And that's also a cost I think that a lot of companies don't even take into account. And yes, there's hard dollar costs, as I said, from a new sale perspective or renewal, but there's also those intangible soft dollar costs that don't come out and hit you right away. So there's lots of different things can cost you in a lot of different ways when that tech does blow up.
Yeah. And I think maybe sometimes we even don't think about it, like, oh, it broke, and so we had to, like, we had to pay someone overtime to, like, manually fix things, but that effect of cost of engagement could cost you business, could cost the revenue. And you hit on it all, like the trust. It's like, now I don't know what to do. Like, now there's no trust left in this system, or trust that this is going to work. I think I've seen it sometimes where, like, we're going to go back to the old system because we're comfortable with it, even if it doesn't work the best, but at least you can trust the dinosaur type of thing. I want to get into evaluation. Actually, there's a really great question in the chat that gets us, I think it's going to get us started. I'm sorry, let me just make sure I can find it. So Nick, there's a question from Richard in the chat that's going to get us started on this next lens, but was there a specific event that changed how you evaluate event tech today? Because then we're going to start talking about evaluation.
Yeah, I mean, I can think of, I'm trying to think of the ones without NDAs or can be vague about. Yes, some technologies purport to do more than they actually can because they generally lean on their super optimal situation. And then when you ask them what the variables are, they're like the most common elements of every single event. Like, I can think of some technologies that are around tracking that they're like, yeah, our major problems, when things don't work perfectly, are big open spaces, lots of concrete, and then a high concentration of other phones. And you're like, events? Like, that's every event? They're like, yeah, if there's a lot of concrete and a lot of other phones, then yeah, the opportunity for the data to be poor starts to escalate. And you're like, oh, well, all right. So if I'm in a field with 50 people, it's great. But if I'm at a trade show or a conference, not so good. But like you start to like hear what those things are. So asking what the variables are and how common they are, and then like what the opportunity is for that one. I can think of a specific instance of that where you looking at the phone and like watching myself being tracked and seeing myself over here and over here and over here and over here because of drift. That's an example. Like, there's one event fail that I experienced because I was working with an organizer, and I think I had to be in that position to like feel the pain, where it was a fashion show for an NBA team. So weird, but it was like a fundraising event, and all the screens just went out, and it was all about the content, and the screens were also the instrument for the fundraising, be it QR code and whatever else, and like spurring people on. So like the mission critical element of the event, while the fashion show happened, they didn't raise money. So
the event is moot, right, at that point, if it didn't do what it was designed to do.
They paid money and they had a net negative as far as their brand. Like, if they were to have stayed home, it would have been better for the organization. Those are the ones where like that's a question I would ask, like those kinds of things. But just being there, by the way, in the trenches and like watching as like things are happening and it was completely out of our control, and being helpless, like remembering that feeling from an empathy standpoint, now that I'm more on the other side as far as technology, it really helps. Like I wouldn't want to put anyone else in that position. So like from an event tech standpoint, if you can work with event organizers and actually, be a mile in their shoes, it will make you better. And, vice versa, I probably would imagine, but more so in the lack of empathy is probably more so on the tech side, in my opinion, than it is on the organizer side. They have, feelings for days. It's, that this isn't just like in technology, like every 10 TED Talks is about how great failure is. Failure is the greatest way to learn ever. And in the event organization world, there's no upsides to that. So having understanding that this is not like, we're going to learn a lot from your, our mistakes at your event when it comes to like, QA and improving our UI, UX. Who cares? This is someone's life. And they hired you and they put their trust in you. And their organization put their trust in that person to do that. So you are vicariously, in a position where you can make that person look really bad in their organization. So like, I think empathy on the event tech side will allow a lot of this stuff not to get that far.
That's such a fantastic answer. And I think sharing the empathy and even looking for that empathy. You know, Jeff and Sarah, I'm going to bring you in a second, but even looking for that empathy at these demos with the users, connecting them to other users. Like, hey, you know, we worked with this company that had a really similar thing. We'd love to put you in there. We learned a lot from working with them. But this idea, you know, of that failure, because it does have a personal impact. Has a personal impact on the person who hired you, has a personal impact on people who are using it. Your poor volunteers were never going to come volunteer for your event again because everything went, you know, to crap 30 seconds before. I know we had more questions in this, but the chat is blowing up, and I want to make sure we get to some of these. Nick and Sarah and Jeff, there are questions for all of you here in the chat. So I'm going to actually start going to these and making sure that we have an opportunity to answer some of them. Janet has a question for you, and she says, from an on-site perspective, what issue creates the most panic for teams? And she would like your perspective.
There's so many of them, but I think we've been talking a bunch of these already, which is tech. Now, obviously on a live on-site, there's no pause button. You know, your executives are probably watching, attendees are waiting, and the anxiety is just going on. The presenter is trying to talk, and they have no clue what's transpiring or who to go fix it or who to even know. So there's just all that pent up, and there's no backup. There's no clear communication. And I think the audiences can, you know, forgive a little bit if there's a tech issue, as long as it's handled professionally and they see something is being addressed. It's when that state of confusion comes into play from the audience perspective that the people on stage have no clue what's going on. There's no one taking responsibility. And that's, to me, is the biggest flaw that you're going to have, is not having that fallback, you know, solution or preparedness of not knowing who to go to, who to get in touch with.
Absolutely. And, you know, when you haven't prepared, your speakers are up there like, my mic isn't working. Hello. And I'm like, okay, you're making it real awkward for everybody. Like, we're on it. Just kind of keep going. And, you know, we know and we'll get to it type of thing. Sarah, thank you, Jeff. There are a ton of questions for you here in the chat. Want to make sure, sorry, for friends in the chat, I'm trying to scroll back up to make sure I don't miss anyone. You have a question from Charlotte, which says, do companies sometimes buy more technology than they actually need?
I think this is interesting. I think sometimes they do, but I think the key thing here is I don't think they buy more technology than they need. I think they focus on more features than they need. Sometimes when it comes to the event, you're not even focusing when you have the demo. You're like, oh, this is really cool. This company offers all these things. And then you're like, let's go with that package because maybe we'll use it one day. In reality, you might never use it. But you're not focusing as much of the workflow that you actually need to do. So I don't know about like technology as a whole. Like from my experience, we're pretty, we have different types of technology we use for AI translations, all that kind of stuff. And it seems like we're kind of in a good position, but I do see a lot people focus on these features that maybe they don't need, and maybe they need to focus on like the simple workflow before getting to those, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and actually there's a question from Julian in the chat that speaks right to this. Nick, it was directed towards you, but I think it's for all of you. It's like, what features do companies get excited about early, but then rarely use later? So it looks flashy in the demo, but then you're like, actually, I'm never going to use this. For those of you in the chat, we were all teasing each other earlier. There's probably 10,000 extra features on my iPhone that I have no idea work, but I know I can call people, I can text people, I can take pictures, I can post to social media, like kind of all of the basics, but I'm sure it can do a lot more. Sarah, Jeff, or Nick, do any of you want to jump in on this? It's like, you know, features that people are getting overly excited about, but maybe...
I mean, I would say CRM capabilities. There's a lot of technologies that have APIs and connections to your CRM, but if you're not actually fully utilizing your CRM, or if there's IT specific, you know, or data privacy issues that would, you know, keep you from that, then it's sort of a waste. And then also, conversely, it's probably one of the ones where I see people not using as much as they should be using it to be able to streamline their data and be able to pull it into their source of truth. So sometimes they think it's a really cool thing and they don't use it. The other time is that they don't use it because they, you know, don't even understand how valuable it could be. So there's a lot, when it comes to like connections with CRMs that I find to be, underutilized on both sides.
Absolutely. And it's so interesting that you said source of truth, because our last Eventcombo webinar was actually just about that source of truth and data, and basically where you can get it from, how they talk to each other. So a lovely little bridge there to another interesting topic. But I love that you brought up this idea that like, it can look flashy, but if you don't immediately know how to like apply it, maybe not for you, but look at the ones that are really, really true to your core purpose. Like if you know that you're risk averse in certain things like data, like don't mess around with the CRM, like that's the one you really should be dialing into and putting more efforts into. It's interesting because you all have brought up trust, and then Richard actually has a question in the chat about, do event teams put too much trust in vendor promises early in the process? Jeff, I want to start with you on this one because I know you've talked a lot about trust and building trust, but is it vendor promises? Is it the idea of what it can do? Is there too much trust without questions? You want to dive in?
I think sometimes there's too much trust is placed within the vendors. I don't think a lot of companies actually do their homework on the vendors. Kind of going back to what Nick talked about earlier, is have they handled an event this size? What happens in situations? Do you have a key contact person? So I think part of it is the experience level of the event planner. It plays into this as well. And so it's a two-way street. At the end of the day, it's got to be a win-win for both. And sometimes, the vendor taking on the event, have they done their homework about the company as well? Do they know what the expectations are of what they're going to able to provide, and vice versa? So, this has to be a win-win. And let me just kind of also say that I think the best tech is the one that no one ever notices. It just works.
Bingo. The only time you notice is when it's not working, right?
Yeah.
One of the things we actually didn't talk about, but I want to make sure you all have a chance to look at, because we're talking about demos, but we both know that these happen in two different ways. So we know we go to the trade show, right? And the person is there and they're giving us the demo, and it's a little bit more broad. And Nick, I think maybe in that point, we need to become prepared to ask questions. But Jeff, to your point, it's like, I'm inviting you into demo just to me. Like, I want to get on that call. I'm giving you 45 minutes to an hour of my time. Is that a better place to build trust? Is that where you expect the vendor to come prepared for the conversation and the demo that's a little bit more aligned to your business? Or is it okay to get the general demo at the trade show, and then when you set it up, you expect something a little bit more bespoke? Because I think that would help us shift our perspective if those of us are looking into purchasing event tech or looking into upgrading. Where is that trust being built? Should it be built on the show floor, or should it be built in the one-to-one conversation, or both?
To me, it's got to be on both. I mean, you got to be able to build it on the show floor so that they will actually, upon expression, show up for your one-to-one. If you don't do a well enough presentation or gain enough trust and interest on the show floor, you can book an appointment or you can follow back up. They probably won't align. But so you have to have enough of interest or a hook out there to get them into that one-to-one. And if you can, even before that one-to-one, I'd get a pre-discovery call arranged just to learn a little bit more about that person, that company, because I really want to make that presentation, that one-to-one, the best I can actually do. And the best way you can do that is to learn more about it.
I love that. And I think that goes to show, Nick, to your point, you said some companies will do that extra mile. The ones where it's like, listen, can I get on a quick half hour before I even take your time with the demo? I just want to make sure, and you ask those questions, like you said, don't stop being curious. Like, where is the mission aligned? What's considered a fail? How risk averse are we? What is the biggest problem that you've had? Sarah, I see you nodding. You're like, yes, I want that vendor to show up to that call ready to work for me, to build that trust and really understand, are they just performative, or can they really be something that integrates? And yes, this is a Tuesday for me, or like, maybe we aren't actually the best after the discovery call to service your tech needs. I might recommend someone else, or, before I take up time and try to just sell you something, really looking at that. Thinking about new tech, Sarah, this question I'm going to start with you because it's about real usage. How much training do teams realistically need before a new system starts feeling natural?
Yeah, and I think one thing, I actually wrote some notes before we started saying, one of the things too is like, and I'll touch on the team part, but when you are live at these events, likely the people who are working with the tech have never seen the tech before. They're contractors that you've hired through an event company. and I'm not there to hold their hands. I'm off doing something else. So I think that's a little part too. But how long it takes to learn technology of some sort, I actually don't think you'll ever fully learn it. I'm learning things every day. One thing my department right now that I've just kind of started on with them is we're building playbooks for every single thing that we do with technology, and not necessarily, they're not manuals of like step one, click the my event section. It's more of how to handle each situation in the technology and each feature that we have, because obviously as you learn more too, you are able to use more of those pieces, because I'm sure any other event managers or coordinators on this call, when the event is starting to be planned, you have a lot of hopes and dreams, but when you get close, you decide to push them to the side. So I don't think you ever really truly fully know it, but I think after like 6 months to a year in building those playbooks, I think you're pretty comfortable. At least that's what I've noticed with my staff.
And Sarah, that's a good question between learning new tech, integrating new tech, and then maintaining it and upgrading it over time. Nick, I think you brought up something similar when it said, who do I get to talk to? Would it be okay to ask who is going to be on some training? Like, how available are you while we're onboarding new people versus like, okay, we sold it to you, I'm thinking like a floppy disk, put it in your system, download it, and like, it's up to you now, go to, versus like, do you have someone available who's specific for how many trainings do I get? How many people do I get to onboard? Is there a limit to onboarding? Are you available to help just with training? And then maybe walk us through the first, like the first one together. Could you talk a little bit to us about this specific lens so we know where that trust can also be built? Because not all of us were born ready to download like the Matrix. Okay, I know how to use this program now.
Yeah, I mean, asking what their training process is and asking what their training resources are. If they're good and they've thought this through and it's been battle tested at the level that I believe is probably the right call for an event, they have a few different options. It's not like just like, here's the way to learn, because we know there's all kinds of different kinds of learners. There should be the hands-on and there should be resources that are on demand. Those are two different kinds of learners, and also one helps the other one. When you keep it in your back pocket, that these are available to you, that you can go to immediately. I find like a troubleshooted, organized event scenarios in a library of is better than an FAQ of videos of like, when this happens, try this, when this happens, this. That'll at least get you to the first 5, 6, things that it would more likely be the issue. Then you can work your way through it in the same way that I think we've all been trained to like, go to YouTube to figure out how to like fix something, where we're not looking at instructions anymore like that. We're just watching a video of someone else doing it. And then also, knowing it, when you want to escalate it up, you have that. I think that's a pretty good way to navigate around that. But yeah, I mean, it really just comes down to like understanding what the process is, and then having a good understanding of how your team learns to be able to then say, okay, what would you need, to be able to feel competent? And for some people, it's, images and videos, and for other people, it's hands-on. They need to do it themselves. And then if you have any third parties involved, which is often the case, that's probably where a lot of things go down, is that there's someone in between, a general contractor, booth builder, or audio visual production company that's in between you and the implementation. That's where it gets a little trickier as far as the training. Like they're in a position where they're going to try to tell you that they've heard it all, seen it all, done it all, and you're in a position where you're just like, I just want you to be able to do this. Like, it's not a judgment thing or whatever. Just watch the videos or take this, or tell me you understand it. Like for us, even like we use as an example Zenus, like we deploy hardware at events. So there's also the setup element of it. You can use our team or you can use third party. Frequently people use Freeman, and Freeman have all been trained on it in a training, formal training program. And if they want to use a third party, we have an app that like is basically takes you through each step. So you do it and it like guides it up to the photo, and you take the picture, and now you've done it. It's like very babies first, whatever. step by step. And
babies for Zenus.
Yeah, I guess, like it, and our product is like basically it's plug and play. So like I'm really making it sound like harder than it is, but it allows you to take a photo of it. So what happens is that if it doesn't work, then we actually have you cataloging every step. So if it trouble tickets to a 24/7, person who's available for your event, they can just access the steps and be like, oh, it's step 3, so like we're every time we're doing events, at the stage we're at, we're like cataloging, and this is what all technology companies should be doing, optimization opportunities and sharing that amongst team. Like we just had a debrief about grounding for electricity based on IMEX on like another scenario when there's a particular carpeted ground. So like we had, a conversation around that. So like, asking another question to ask at that, important stage before you go with someone is, tell me your process of when you've updated, your product offering based around, something that happened at an event. You just want to be able to see that they're thinking about this stuff constantly because, and I'm just telling you this from the other side, tech generally comes from a stage of like move as fast as you can. Yeah. And like that's just not how we think in the event space. Like we're just like think as thoroughly as you can. Think around everything. We have all year to think about these days. They're trying to like do the same thing over and over to stamp it to make it, even more efficient. That's why you see thousands of layoffs every week in tech is because like their mindset is just like scale, scale. And we're like execute excellently. That's the conflict. The conflict is that it's speed versus, quality.
I think that's such a great point for what we do because, and I think all of you have said it before, is like, this moment is the most important moment for me, for my team, for my company, for our visibility, for our fundraising, for our fiscal year, for our celebrating our employees. This is so important to me. I want you to see how important this is to me and treat this as importantly versus like, here's the tech, here's A, B, and C, like I gotta go. Like, which one do you want? Do you want the person, Jeff, to your point, who's going to prep, who's going to slow down? I think that's really where we're going to build it. We have about 1 minute and 30 seconds left. I want to stop and say thank you to Nick, to Sarah, and to Jeff, and to all of you who have joined us for this fantastic webinar. I think we've learned so much, and I want to thank you all for sharing about preparation, about trust, about empathy, about being able to ask hard questions, about knowing how to have those moments, not overcomplicating our tech stack, right? Finding exactly what works. Don't get bought in by bells and whistles. You want to see them sweat, ask them the questions, be consultative, don't stop being curious, looking at excellence and what that looks like. If you could say thank you in the chat to all of our panelists, we thank you so much. Don't forget to share this recording with anyone else in your Eventcombo family. And we want to thank you for joining us today. So again, from Eventcombo and myself, Devin Pasha, thanking Jeff Brandeis, Sarah Bonney, and Nick Borelli for sharing your expertise. Connect with them on LinkedIn, ask more of your questions, and have a fantastic rest of your Tuesday.